Well, hi, everyone. I'm Daniel Williams, Senior Editor at MGMA and host of the MGMA Podcast Network. Welcome. We have another show today, and our guest is someone I've had the opportunity to meet over the years. And actually, I met her at a MGMA event when she told me she was a regular listener. So I always love having people listen to the show and then join us. So we are joined today by Carol Ittig, and she is an MBA and has her FACMPE. A little bit more background about Carol. She's an administrator at Children's Orthopedic and Scoliosis Surgery Associates in St. Petersburg, Florida. Carol, we're going to be talking a lot about leadership and a go-giver philosophy. So first of all, before we do all that, I just want to welcome you to the show.
Well, thanks, Daniel. I really appreciate being on the show. Actually, and you're right, I am an avid listener. I have a 30-minute commute on the way to work, so I just have you in my queue and I listen to you as your new episodes come out. And I've actually even met people that you've had on your podcast because the topic interested me. So I looked them up, and Dolores McNair is one of them, actually.
That
I don't
is
know if I told you that before.
No, I didn't know that, and that is so
Yeah,
cool. It's kind of full circle, and so that is
yeah.
really, really neat. Well, thank you for joining us.
Of course. Thanks for
Yeah,
having me.
and you and I got to meet in person, I think for the first time. Was that in Denver at the Leaders
Yeah, I was
Conference?
in Denver. I ended up getting stuck there because of the hurricane down here in Florida.
Oh my gosh. Had you been to
Yeah.
Denver before?
I had been to Denver one other time. That's the year that I took my CMPE exam was in
Okay.
Denver. So
Oh,
yeah, one
okay.
other time. Yep.
Okay, great. Well, you're in St. Pete and it's probably pretty warm there. We're in Denver and we've had snow recently. So
Yeah.
we're kind of hunkering down for a very possibly cold winter. So just,
Well, I'm from Michigan, so I understand. And I am enjoying the 72-degree weather here in Florida, though.
oh my goodness. All
Yeah.
right. Well, it is so good to get to talk to you here in this setting. And one of the things I wanted to talk to you first about, you are an avid listener. And so, we do
Yeah.
like to just do a little background with our guest. You're I guess, a Michigan native. You had mentioned you're
Yeah.
now a transplant to Florida. Tell us a
Yeah.
little bit about that healthcare journey. I'm always interested
Oh,
what
wow.
interests people in the first place. I will tell you, I was a biology major for my first year and a half of college because during that half I was taking organic chemistry with a
Mhm.
tutor, could not pass it. Everybody failed one
Oh,
of the tests coming up, so the teacher gave it to us again. It was a Saturday night. We were going to have the test on Monday. I was studying and I could hear all the music coming from all the parties on Saturday
oh
night around
man.
me. Still flunked the test. And I went, okay, I'm dropping the class and moved into kind of communications, journalism, all that good stuff.
Hey, it
So
was the right thing to do, Daniel. You're doing great at it. So
I couldn't get
it was a
past
sign.
organic chemistry though. But you being on the administrative side, I don't know that you had to
Yeah.
take any of the biology courses. So where did your kind of
No.
interest in healthcare begin?
Actually, that's a great question because we just had our 30-year high school
Oh,
reunion,
cool.
actually. And one of the questions was, who was your favorite teacher in high school? And that would have to be Mrs. Warner. She was a nurse and she had this medical skills class, 1 and 2. And at the end of that, you could do a co-op and you could work, somewhere and use your medical skills, and you could take a CNA certification. And my job that I chose was at a retirement home as a dietary aide. And I just really, really enjoyed talking to the retirees. I mean, I would go there every night after school. I would serve them dinner, and they just became like a second family, to the point where they were like my grandparents. I had like 100 of them, and I thought, well, I really could do a career in like a nursing home as an administrator or something like that. I could just talk to these people all day. I just really, really enjoyed it. So when I went to college, I majored in healthcare administration and I was in a co-op program. And as I was getting towards the end, I started doing like little interviews with different people in the field. And at that point in time, I was involved in an organization, I think it's called ACHE, which is for healthcare executives, hospital executives. And that was more on the track of what I thought I was doing. And as I was talking to one of those people, trying to get advice of what should my first job be out of school, because I know I'm not going to walk into a nursing home and be an administrator. He said, well, you have to be licensed for that and you have to have so many hours and this and that and the other thing. Why don't you start in medical group management? I didn't even know what that was. So he kind of stepped me through that. And my first job in healthcare was actually as a medical receptionist. It's kind of a long story, but that's how I ended up in medical group management and just started and worked my way up from there. So, and I've enjoyed it. And the first job I had, somebody said, hey, why don't you join MGMA? And I just don't do things like a little bit. I do them all the way. So my first goal was to become certified and it evolved from there.
Yeah, we are so grateful you took that advice and you did jump
Yeah.
in with both feet, because you have just been integral since you've been a member. You got the fellowship and then you've been giving back. You're an avid listener to the podcast. You have played a huge role in our community live programs that we've had as well. Tell us about that then. You said when you don't do things halfway, but when you got into MGMA, was it just wanting to give back? Was it wanting to take advantage of everything available to you? What was it that you just keep reaching and moving forward with all these different programs and benefits that are out there available to you?
One of the things about being a practice administrator is you're kind of jack of all trades, master of some. And I find myself to be like one of those lifelong learners. I just really enjoy learning new things. So, like, for example, this year, I dove into 3 new things in my job here that I've never done before. We started a research department. We started a foundation called CH Ortho Cares that helps with pediatric orthopedic research. And we also started a real estate holding company because the doctors are buying the building that we occupy here in St. Petersburg. And those are all things I've never done before. And whenever I dive into something like that, I have to rely on my peers and my network. And if I did not have that network of peers, either in the MGMA or AAOE, which is the other organization I belong to, I wouldn't be able to do my job today. I mentioned that I'm a Michigan native and I'm down here in Florida. I am down here in Florida because of my mentor, Debbie Mitchell. When I first joined another leadership organization for orthopedic executives, they asked me if I wanted a mentor. And I said, sure, why not? I've been doing this for 10 years, but never in orthopedics. So I have a lot to learn. So they assigned me to Debbie Mitchell. Debbie Mitchell changed my life. She was funny. She was hilarious. I got to tell you, when she called me to tell me that she was my mentor, she said, well, I'm going to take you all around Chicago to the best bars. And she's funny. She goes, and I'm going to get you drunk. And I'm going to take you to dinner with all the best vendors and you're going to meet everybody. And she was true to her word. I participated willingly with all of the shenanigans, but we became good friends and just kept in contact. And probably 2 years after that, I was planning a vacation to Florida. And I thought, well, does Debbie live anywhere close to Sarasota? Because that's where I was going. And I called her up and I said, hey, Debbie, I'm going to be in Florida. Can we do lunch? And she goes, well, yeah, but how about you interview for my job while you're down here? And I said, I'm not trying to move to Florida, Debbie. I'm just trying to have lunch with you. She goes, yeah, but I'm going to retire in 18 months. I think you should have my job. And I don't know, the rest is history. Once I met the doctors here and saw how giving they were and how they value their employees, I had never really had an employer like that before. And it was that way because of Debbie. And she taught me through her mentorship that boundaries are healthy. You don't have to allow behavior from people that isn't healthy. And she didn't care if people liked her. She cared if she got the job done. And those are all things she taught me. And to circle completely back to your original question, how did I get so involved in like the pay your lives and stuff like that? Well,
Mm-hmm.
Debbie was great at revenue cycle management. I knew a little bit about it, enough to, manage a practice, but not the details that she knew. And she really taught me everything she knew. And I got to tell you, if I ever get out of administration, I'm going to just do revenue cycle management because I love it. And it's just, to me, fun because you get to fight with the payers
Yeah.
and eventually hopefully win. But yeah, that's how I got so involved. It was because of her. She was actually a listserv champion on the community listserv. She just was a giver too.
Well, that segues into our next segment here in the conversation. You and I talked about a week or two ago, and
Yeah.
we were talking about a book that influenced you, and it's called The Go-Giver. And I shared with you that at the in the MGMA book club, that was one of our selections in 2025. And so you and I decided we would chat a little bit about The Go-Giver as well. So what is it about this particular book that's really resonated with you and has influenced how you are as a leader?
I picked up that book. My husband and I used to have date nights way back when, before kids, and we used to go to Barnes and Noble and we would get a coffee and a treat and we would just shop around the store. And he's a professor in English education.
Okay.
So he has this love for reading, and I have a love for learning, but not necessarily reading. And so when I came by this book, I picked it up. It was very small, only 144 pages. And I thought, I can do this. So I read the back and I was like, oh, wow, this is kind of like what I'm already doing. But I recognized myself on every page. I had already been leading that way, giving value first, helping others without keeping score. And it just kind of gave me the language for my instinct. So I think my biggest principle that I align with in my style is giving without keeping score, but with boundaries, because being generous doesn't mean letting yourself get drained. It's giving in ways that empower people, not enable them. The go-giver mindset is very important in healthcare because it's the second most regulated industry in the country, right behind nuclear energy. It's impossible to self-teach your way through it, and we need each other. Collaboration isn't optional, it's survival.
Yeah.
So.
I love that. Now, you told me offline that you just, for this interview, you reread the book. Now, it is short, and it's one of those, if anybody hasn't read it, Carol and I highly recommend it here. But if you've read books like Who Moved My Cheese and other books like that, they're business leadership books, but they're set in, would you call it a parable form?
It's a fable.
A
Yeah,
fable.
it's a
Yeah.
fable. Yeah. And
Yeah.
those are the books I love. That's why I also love Get a Grip.
Okay.
That's another book I love.
Okay.
But yeah.
Um, you just read it. I read it about 6 months ago, so jog my memory and anybody listening. The basic setup is, just fill us in just basically. What's the basic
The
kind of
basic
plot
premise
line?
of the book, yeah, is the more you give, the more you get. And so there's 5 laws. The law of value: give more value than you take in payment. Create values far beyond your job description. Elevate every department you touch. The law of compensation: your income is determined by how many people you serve and how well you serve them. This is why I, do Pay Your Lives, and I'm on the membership committee for a couple different organizations. The law of influence: your influence is determined by how abundantly you place others' interests first. So, you give your team support and you help anybody that you can without them asking. If you see they need help, you offer your help. Let them have the boundaries to tell you no, but offer. And then the law of authenticity: the most valuable gift you have is yourself. You have to be authentic with what you're doing. If you don't love it, then you shouldn't try and do it. It's not going to be authentic. And then the law of receptivity: the key to effective giving is staying open to receiving. So I can tell you this is a very important principle because I had never really put too much thought into it, but I can tell you through the relationships I've made and this, philosophy of mine that I've received back tenfold. I'm involved in a couple really cool projects right now that I would have never been involved with if I hadn't, engaged in this, I guess, behavior. But you have to be open to receiving.
Yeah, it's so interesting that that's the one you zeroed in on, because when we discussed it in the MGMA book club, that was one people honed in on. And I think we've all either been in this situation or we know people like this, where when either you receive, well, I'll use this as an example that was given in the book club, people that get a compliment and they deflect it. And it's sort of like negating the power of that compliment. Like, oh my gosh, I love your, that new outfit. Or, oh my gosh, I love that you did that project and blah, blah, blah. And then it's immediately, well, thank you for recognizing that I made this effort to lose weight, or I made this effort to go the extra mile on this project or whatever. But instead of saying that, you just go, oh shucks, or you completely deflect it. Tell us how that resonates with you, that particular law or principle.
It resonates big time. I think way back in my career, first starting out, I worked with an awesome physician. His name was Dr. Greg Naiman. His name is Dr. Greg Naiman. He's in Ferndale, Michigan. And I would always say, oh, this practice administrator knows so much. She's so cool. And he would tell me, but Carol, you know just as much as her. Stop putting yourself down like others are better. Or he would compliment me on like a blouse that I was wearing, and I'd be like, oh yeah, but it's got stains on the wrist. And,
right.
I can't get the stains out. And he'd be like, why did you tell me that? I would have never known. Stop doing that. When you get compliments, just take them. Stop downplaying them. So I learned a lot from him actually too, as one of my mentors, coming up through this career.
Yeah. You bring up something that as you said, you've heard this show before. That's why I ask questions that they might go, gosh, is he going to ask the same question to every guest? And it's maybe at its core, it might be that, but then it branches out to wherever the conversation goes. But the thing that I really am interested in is that origin story and the impact others make in people's lives, because there's a lot of grit and self-determination and resilience. But when I talk to people who are MGMA members, I don't recall talking to any, or if at all, very many people who didn't say someone else saw something in them and guided them. And I've already, from you talking, you already have Debbie Mitchell and then the second gentleman who also guided you and complimented you on your...
Yeah, Dr. Greg Naiman, yeah.
Exactly.
That's exactly it.
Yeah, talk about that, because what we've seen and how you first came on my radar was people talking about your efforts in Community Live. We have paused that right now at MGMA just as we're reorganizing and doing things. But tell us about Community Live and what that kind of networking in real time with your peers means to you.
It means everything, because without each other, we have nothing. And I'll give you an example. And something that I'm doing outside of Community Live, and probably what got everybody's attention, is that I started a billing listserv for orthopedic billers. There are just some, unique things that come up that are very, niche to orthopedics that nobody else is going to want to listen to or read on a listserv. So I started my own listserv through this tool called Simple Lists. And as things came up, I would throw out a question and hopefully somebody would answer, and vice versa. If I could answer, I would. And one of the things that came up on that listserv was we were all getting the same denial on casting supplies. The denial was saying that casting supplies were inclusive in fracture treatment and that it was a new NCCI edit. And all of us were befuddled. We're like, this is not a thing. I don't remember anything changing in NCCI. We checked all of the edits. There was nothing. And so we started communicating. Okay, now I'm getting it with Humana. Now I'm getting it with Aetna. Now I'm getting it with Cigna. And what we found out is that there is one company that serves 115 or 90% of the payers in the country on their claims editing software. And they had incorrectly interpreted an NCCI rule and implemented a rule to all of their payers that was incorrect. And we would have never been able to figure that out had we not been talking. But my practice alone had 1,200 claim lines denied, over like $50,000 worth of claims denied. And that was nationwide. Every single payer in the nation, including TRICARE, Humana, was denying these claims that were actually payable. So I was able to work with AAOS, which is the Orthopedic Society for the physicians, and they wrote a strongly worded letter to this third-party vendor, letting them know that their edit was wrong, and they were able to turn the edit off and advise the payers that the edit was wrong. And but then it was up to us providers to pursue with the payers to get paid, because they did not proactively reprocess and pay those claims. So that's really how I got involved greatly with this payer live stuff, because if we hadn't been communicating, that would have, just persisted. And I've come to learn more about these payer edits. There is AI going on, and we had talked about that last time we talked as well. And the AI is in the sense that there's a third party that's reviewing claims and suggesting edits for these payers to turn on. And they're even showing them how much money they'll save if they consider and turn on this edit. So while I don't know that there's really AI going on as far as, diagnosis codes, because we know that there's E&M downcoding going on right now too. We're trying to figure out the rhyme and reason to that, or the pattern to that. But the AI that I see is that the payers are probably sharing edits or being suggested edits by their third-party vendor, which is not good. And in my opinion, probably is like along the lines of antitrust.
Mm-hmm. In the remaining time, I want to ask you a couple more questions.
I know.
Yeah, we just had a guest, Dr. Paula Ballister. You introduced the two of us. The three of us met. We talked a couple of weeks ago, and we're thinking about doing a show together, all three of us. And then I started talking to both of you, and I went, no, y'all both have such incredible stories to tell.
Yeah.
I want to have y'all on separately. But the reason I bring that up is I just wanted to share yet again, that's you networking, that's you making connections in the industry. Tell us about anything you want to share about your relationship with Dr. Ballister and how y'all have benefited each other, and because y'all just had such a compelling story when I talked to you.
Yeah, so she's the director of utilization at our affiliated hospital.
Mm-hmm.
And I work with her on all types of things. Specifically, if we have a prior auth that is still pending at the time of surgery, or we just come up with any roadblocks or bumps. Like in pediatrics, we have this issue with inpatient only procedures where peds, a lot of these femur fractures can be done outpatient. In adults, they always have to be inpatient because they require traction and things of that nature. But for kids, they just remodel their bone and you don't have to do much. But there's always kind of issues with, they want to change the place of service, or because it's required for prior auth. It's kind of silly. But anyways, through that, I got to know her, and I think she became very frustrated with this prior auth process, and started talking about coming up with a software that would help providers with prior auth, because we know that the payers must be using. So, well, we know they're using something because we saw the lawsuits against PX, DX, and I can't remember the other one. But they're basically looking at certain data to determine whether they're going to to approve the prior auth or not. So she took the idea of bumping up the payer policies against the documentation to see if there were any deficiencies. So once you make your authorization request, you are prepared. So it might say, okay, yeah, it looks like this patient is ready for you to submit prior auth, except for like the payer request or requires 6 weeks of physical therapy and 6 weeks of NSAID, and you don't have that documented. Well, you know that the patient had physical therapy and you know that they told you that they took NSAIDs, but for some reason you didn't document it. So then you take the minute to go back and you find the physical therapy records and do an addendum to the note and record the NSAID usage, do an addendum to your note or a memo or whatever it takes to make sure that it's properly documented. So when you do attempt your prior auth, it's all right there, and then you don't give them a reason to deny. And then she also has a tool, if you do get denied your prior auth, it can like comb through your information and give you kind of talking points for the peer-to-peer review. But that's how we really got involved. And she also helped me with this one particular patient. We had over 90 emails going back and forth trying to get this patient authorized for an injection, a diagnostic injection in the IR department. And we could not get the payer to approve the injection until we ran the payer information and the documentation through her AI, which is HIPAA compliant. And it finally gave us all of the information we needed, which we had. We just didn't present it in the right way to get that procedure approved. But that poor person was a gymnast and wasn't able to perform or compete because they were in pain. And those poor parents, all they wanted was for their child to be able to do what they love. And we couldn't get the prior auth approved, even though they had benefits and they had all of the things required. We just weren't speaking the same language.
Right. I love you sharing that. And Dr. Ballister briefly touched on that as well. And I feel like it's that movie Rashomon. It's a Japanese movie where they tell the same story from different points of view. I'll have to have the patient on here as well now to get the full story. Yeah.
Or her parents. I mean, they're her poor parents. I mean, a lot of the surgeries we do, like a single event multi-level surgery or like a spine surgery, these parents, they have, their mom or dad or brother or sister fly in from out of town to help them with the recovery. And then to find out 2 days before the surgery that it didn't get authorized for some administrative issue, it is just devastating. These people take time off of work and make travel plans and arrangements. It's not good for patient care.
Well, I appreciate the work you're doing and the work that Dr. Ballister's doing as well. So last quick question here before we sign off. You are so integrated into MGMA. And when I talk to a lot of people at MGMA who are members, when I read the survey results, the information we get back, and we are very well aware that it's often difficult to find things on our website. How are you able to navigate? How are you able to understand, oh, right, here's the FACMPE, or here's the fellowship program, or here's Community Live, or here's another committee or another volunteer opportunity? What secret sauce can you share with our listeners before we go to help them navigate all the things that are available at MGMA so they're not missing good stuff?
Well, I'm just going to flatter you with my response because I really don't have the time to read a bunch of emails and comb through the website. And so if I'm looking for something and I don't find it immediately, I used to email the librarian. I haven't done that in a year or so. Okay. So hopefully that service is still available. But because I listen to your podcast every week, that's really how I'm learning all about the different things that MGMA has to offer. I knew that there was a mentorship program, but I didn't know the depths of it until I heard the interview with Dolores. And that really resonated with me because of my experience with my mentor. But I think that I keep up to date by listening to you, Daniel.
Well, I did not plant that question to get that answer.
But that's true. It's true. And it makes it easy for me because I can just listen to you on the way to work and or on the way home, and I have the information I need.
Okay. Well, wonderful. Well, Carol Ittig, it has been such a pleasure to get to talk to you on the podcast.
Thank you. You too.
All right. Well, everyone listening, I want to wish y'all a happy holidays. And we're going to put a lot of information in the episode show notes. We're also going to provide an article as well with a lot of resources in there. So until then, wishing you all a happy holidays. And thank you all for being MGMA podcast listeners.